Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games, the Week in Games. Guess what week it is? That's right, it's Christmas week. I made sure and wore my Santa Claus hat and my University of Santa Claus sweatshirt, and we are ready to roll. It has been a chilly time lately here, but that means just more gaming inside, right? So let's get to the news. All right. So this week we have new news of Teotihuacan coming out with a March 2020 expansion. Now, there's already been one expansion. This provides another expansion. It's called the Shadow of Zittle, Xitle. It includes new technologies and new starting tiles, and we'll learn a little bit more about it probably after the first of the year. In other news, Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth has introduced an adventure mode. Now, one of the dings against the previous game, and if you'll recall my review, I was lukewarm on it. It was okay, but I didn't find it very good compared to some of my other Lord of the Rings games, but it wasn't a terrible game either, and a lot of people really liked it. But one of the things against it was that it had a hurry up and finish kind of thing that left people who love to explore the map, since it was being generated on the fly, they didn't get that opportunity. Adventure mode changes that because it rejiggers the handling of threat so that you don't have to be rushing to get through to whatever the storylines are. You can instead take your time, go things at your own pace, and it will provide you with somewhat of a challenge, but it's really meant for more of a leisure kind of endeavor in the Journeys of Middle-earth environment. I may go back and give it a shot. I don't know that that's going to satiate my main concern, because that wasn't my concern in the first place. But for those of you who thought, yeah, I really could stand to have a little more adventuring, a little less rush, that's something you might want to try. That's one of the benefits of app-driven games, I guess, is that you can always make adaptations if needed to suit segments of the audience that really groove on the idea of something a little bit different than what you've originally provided. So with that, there isn't a lot of other news because it's towards Christmas. People are probably taking a break, and most of the news we get is usually like before Christmas when people have time to react. So with that, let's get to my question of the week. Okay, my question of the week is yet another topical one, which is, what games do I bring for my holiday gatherings? The answer is none. I really don't. I have discovered a better way of doing things, because I just, usually in the hustle and bustle of Christmas and all that stuff, the thing for me is just catching up with people who I don't see very often, spending time with the families, because people greater than games, and just having a good time. What I usually find is that works better than a couple of the years when I would kind of come in almost proselytizing gaming, like, hey, you guys want to play a game, whatever. And what I found is that just kind of deterred, distracted, and segmented people away. Like, oh, if I'm playing a game with these two guys and other people are doing other stuff, it just hasn't resonated well. It hasn't been a good fit for the year. So what I do instead is I bring no games, and then people are like, hey, did you bring any games? Like, nah, I'm just here to hang out. Oh, man, next time you should bring this or that. It's the supply and demand thing. I don't want to saturate the market. So instead I leave them wanting more. But what I do instead is I schedule gaming days around Christmas so that if I do get any new games, because gosh, I wonder if I'm going to get any new games. Was Santa good to me this year? And I take the opportunity then to sort of gather like 26th, 27th, 28th, figure out some game days, and I do stuff with people who are like, hey, I want to come back over and play this. That puts the pressure off of being, Christmas and wanting to be with people and spend time with the family, and, and the tension between, not tension, but the tug of war between that and just being able to focus and play some games. So that's what I do, but that's just me. I am one person in a world of billions. What do other people do? Do you guys manage to get some games to the table? Do you have a ripe audience of people going, forget the presents, bring the games? Anyway, well, that's my question of the week. And let's get to my 3 games. All right, game number 1. Carnival of Monsters by Richard Garfield. Now, Richard Garfield, Hungarian, is known for Magic the Gathering. He's also done quite a few things since then, but nothing's ever caught the renowned bug like Magic the Gathering. Carnival of Monsters is a little interesting in that it's kind of a little Magic-like in some ways, but so different that it's not a comparison. In this case, you are building a menagerie of animals, and over time you're going to do card drafting to grab cards that help you pay for those animals using 5 different land types. Sound familiar? But then you have phases where you have to keep the really dangerous ones in check. You have to have enough traps and enough people to keep them at bay, and then you get points for all of the creatures you were able to display under 4 rounds. So it's interesting. And then, of course, because Glenmore, a classic game that has a strange play until you're ahead kind of mechanism where you take as many turns as you can until you're in the front, and then whoever's in the back takes their turns until they are in the front. What that means is that you could take smaller turns that probably don't pay you as many dividends, or if you really need to do something, you can take a large turn and leapfrog everyone else in the turn order. But you're going to have to wait a while. So I like that tension, and it has Glenmore 2. There is a version of it out. It's also green, and green is kind of a Christmas color because I thought, why not? Let's color code. Let's match, shall we? And finally, I twisted my arm in basketball. So this is the towel. You're killing me. You're killing me, Smalls. On Mars. As you notice, it's not even open yet. It arrived. Why is this game so cool to me? Because it's red. Red and green. It is the Christmas game of On Mars. Who's not going to want to spend Christmas on Mars? This one's a handful, and I haven't even really begun to open and invest in that yet. I'm still going to try and get to Nevsky first before I open up On Mars. I've got time, don't I? Anyway, that's the 3 games. Now let's get to alphabet soup. Okay, the letter I. Not entirely a target-rich environment, but still, there's something there for everyone, right? So there aren't a lot of games in my collection that start with I, but the ones that are, I had enough. I had enough to work with. So what is the top-of-the-line game that starts with the letter I? It's got to be Israeli Air Force Leader. This takes the Leader series and does something unique in that it provides decades of different conflicts that occurred between the Israeli Air Force and some of their surrounding enemies. And it actually does a stellar job of having this progression of technical advancement. So in the initial battles, you will be dealing with very poor equipment. In the later battles, you'll have a little bit better time. Very strange, but makes sense thematically. And that's something that it does, and it does it really well. Just continues to be top-notch. That Leader series is really, really fun solitaire play. The runner-up would be Innis. Innis is a clever little game of area control that I think it's been a little subdued as far as its where it compares to other Dudes on a Map games, but I still think it holds its own with its very unique art style and simple but interesting gameplay. Bottom of the barrel has to be Ideology, the War of Ideas. This is basically the clearance rack hero because I believe it's an Andrew Parks game, and he's been hit or miss. He did a great job on Dungeon Alliance. This one did not make it out of the infield for me. It had a great idea of using ideas, but it was long and just vacant of innovation. I thought it could have gotten a lot longer and done something more interesting. Instead, I just hit the snooze on it. Came out of nowhere, has to be Impulse. This is the strangest 4X game you're ever going to play. It's this compact game with a very compact map. Ships you put on your side, put up. It basically takes 4X games and it distills them not just into something really simple like, say, the Tiny Epic Galaxies. It just twists it around into this very unusual, almost puzzle-like universe. That one came out of nowhere, and it's still interesting. It's not easy to teach, but once people get it, they're like, this is clever. So Riches to Rags has to be Imperial Settlers. Again, not a bad game, just like our last Riches to Rags game was Hostage Negotiator, which was a great game that just was too intense for me. Imperial Settlers is a game that just starts off with such great opportunity to just excel, and then I just felt after a few games that there were other games that hit the niche better. Now, I don't discount it. I think it's actually a very interesting game. I think that the way it's set up is clever. It just went from, wow, my first two games, this is awesome. I'm going to spend years loving this, to this. I don't know. It just didn't quite hit me the next few times I played it, until I felt like it just kind of fell off the neat shelf. So the Meaty Mighty Manwich game, because there wasn't a lot of eyes, I had to go back to Israeli Air Force Leader, which was probably the most complex of the ones, which honestly, it isn't incredibly complex, but in the letter I, it was the most complex. The test of time has to be Innovation. Innovation is a game I tried on my wife expecting it to bomb. It did not. Innovation is exactly what it says it is. It's innovative. You are playing cards, you're splaying cards, you're doing all these clever terms to cards, but ultimately you're building over the course of 10 eras your little civilization, and you're trying to score victory points. And it just sounds so simple, but then you play it and you're like, what have I gotten myself into? And then you're like, I like this. Different paths to victory. I really do well at this game, or I have. I love it 2-player. It's decent 3 or 4-player. But honestly, it has maintained my interest many, many times over. Comeback Tour. I'd love to see Inhabit the Earth, with its quirky little artwork and its clever little handling of global population of animals, to be redone, maybe revamped. Not too much. I think the gameplay's solid, but I'd love to see this come back in some sort of other iteration. And finally, honorable mentions. What has the best theme? You got to go with Istanbul. It's clever. It almost fit other categories, but I let it go because I just felt like it didn't quite jump over the bump that the other games did in the categories. But Istanbul is still a clever game with great theme, moving around, avoiding people, buying things, selling things. Very good. And artwork, an old game, Il Dorado, is just top-notch artwork. So that's it. That's what we have. I wish you all a very Merry Christmas, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again and having a Happy New Year. So thank you, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.